am Stacey Higginbotham, and I am probably going to stand in front of this, but my slides aren't that important, so y'all can just be like, where? I run a newsletter called Stacey Knows Things. It's all about the Internet of Things, both smart home and industrial. And I also have a podcast. And the podcast is also about the Internet of Things. It's called the Internet of Things Podcast. I am not technical. I'm a journalist, and I've covered the Internet of Things for 4 years. Prior to that, I covered semiconductors, broadband, all kinds of nerdy infrastructure technologies. So this is not the presentation you think it is, because Charlie stole it. No, it's because it's about building the last meter infrastructure for the IoT. Fenton had advertised it as something about the industrial internet, which I'm totally happy to talk to you about, but not here. So, like you guys, I am really optimistic about the Internet of Things. I am really excited about what this can bring to bear. But we are totally messing it up right now. And the Internet of Things isn't about the things, it's about services. So that's kind of the big thing. So what is infrastructure? I like to think about broadband because that's where I got my start covering broadband. Broadband is so clearly infrastructure. As we improved the speed and capacity and the location of our broadband networks, we were able to offer services that ranged from things like in the old days of basic Amazon all the way up to today where we've got things like Uber. That is unreal, and it wouldn't have happened without the investment in that infrastructure. The cloud computing, that would not have happened without broadband, but then it also became infrastructure itself. I can't even imagine a world without cloud computing. I don't even store anything on my computer, so when it dies, I just log into someplace else and I'm good to go. But I'm going to challenge you to think about infrastructure just a little bit differently. So I classify mapping data as infrastructure. And why? Because you can build really interesting services on top of it. It is just bare bones. You need to have it if you want to have a service like Uber, a self-driving car, God, even open table. I mean, it's ridiculous. I think computer vision is actually going to become basic infrastructure. Everyone right now is looking at it as kind of a killer app, but what's going to happen is as we improve our algorithms and our models around this, you're going to be able to deploy this just anywhere. If you want to see that future, talk to Facebook. They have an AI machine learning platform that they offer to all of their engineering groups, and it has things like NLP, computer vision, crazy other stuff that I do not remember right now. But they're thinking about it the right way. Not for technology's sake, but because it's going to become part of this basic infrastructure that's going to allow us to offer these services. So think about that. Infrastructure, service enabler. So now we get from the last mile to the last meter. In broadband, once again, the last mile is the most expensive part of the whole equation. You've got fiber to the home, fiber to the curb, you've got the bits and the airwaves and people putting up towers. It's ridiculously expensive. But it lets us stream Netflix in 4K. Or it lets me get off the plane here in the UK and suddenly log onto a network and have all of the access that I had back at home in Austin. So when people think about last meter connectivity for the Internet of Things, they talk a lot about any of these words. We get in debates over, is this mesh network right? Does it have IPv6 capabilities? I don't care. And you guys really shouldn't either. These fights are going to be played out by big companies doing what they do. And it shouldn't stop us from thinking about how to take the IoT further, because that's where we are today. Right now, we're all like, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this is hard. Oh, this is broken. It is, but think beyond that. So, no more hubs too. All right, we also talk about protocols for the Internet of Things, and I just listed those that I could think of in like 5 minutes. And these are industrial, they're home, they're all kinds of crazy things, and we also debate about that. I've spent more calls with middleware software companies than I even want to tell you guys about. It's excruciating. Instead of talking about what we can do, we're talking about how we can do it. And not in the cool, let's build a cool services way. We're talking about like data normalization. And I know that's what you guys do. But I challenge you, again, think beyond that, because otherwise you're going to get bogged down and you're not going to be as inspired as you can be. Standards are only part of the story. Here's the real story. So, we need information delivered as a service to make the Internet of Things work. And here's a great example. GPS data is amazing, but it almost wasn't. What happened was in 2007 or 2008, companies, small companies and big companies started signing deals with GPS providers. So these are Qualcomm, Broadcom, Surf, all these chip companies. And they offered them to pay, instead of per lookup, which was the standard of the day, to pay per user. This was a huge shift. This made checking in from your phone 4 times an hour economically feasible for a company that wanted just to sell you ads. Or in the case of someone like Google, not sell you, well, they also sell you ads. I was gonna say, not sell you anything. But, so once GPS became part of this core infrastructure, we got this whole array of interesting services. Some of them were like super creepy. I don't know if you guys remembered Highlight, which if I was walking someplace, you guys could see like, oh, Stacey's in my social network, and oh my God, she's right over there. It's a little crazy. I wasn't a fan, but it also gave us things like Waze and real-time traffic. When you're driving on the road, every ping to the GPS infrastructure, that could have cost a lot of money, but it doesn't. Foursquare, they can give crazy data on venue popularity. Uber, I've mentioned that. Metromile offers pay-per-mile insurance to companies. Visa uses location data to fight fraud. And because this is the Internet of Things, I can turn on my lights when I drive near my house. So, again, all made possible just because GPS data became accessible. Yay! So, I want you guys to think, what else can we do? Here are a couple, so I'm going to talk about them. Finding things. I have got in my pocket a tile. I also have something by a company named Tracker. I have a fatter tile, and I think I have a couple other Bluetooth trackers. What these do is I stick them in my wallet, in my bag, on my water bottle, and I sign up and log into the app and link the 2 devices, and then if I lose something, I mark it in the app as lost. And what happens is every single other person who has the Tile app on their phone suddenly turns into a little ping that's looking for my water bottle. And if someone walks by it, it tells the service, it doesn't tell the person who just walked by it, and I get a message saying, hey, someone just saw your water bottle over at the hotel. It's always airports. I leave it everywhere in the airports. Obviously, this is only as good as the network. But the network here has like 2,000 people on it. So I was like, hey, if I leave my water bottle here, I feel like in London, I've got a good chance of finding it again. Or maybe someone stole it, and that's fine. So finding things. That's awesome. You notice that Tile has this amazing network effect. The more people who use it, the better the service gets, right? This is a perfect example of basic infrastructure. What they're doing now is tying into deals with Land Rover to put Tile in the car. So now that car is visible to anyone on that network. They're doing deals with wallet manufacturers, Nomad, the people who make mobile accessories. So soon, your mobile phone will just automatically have Tile capability in it. So what we're doing is we're labeling things, just like we once labeled people. So now I can know if it's got Tile in it, or a Tracker, or any of these others. Obviously, we'll get to that in a minute. If I loan someone, let's say, my ladder, and let's say it has this integrated, I actually know where it is. And so suddenly those services that we envisioned maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where you don't want to buy a big piece of bulky equipment because it's expensive, so you start creating like these lending units to like crowd sharing? Crowd sharing units for your tools or something like that. That becomes totally possible. And it's really exciting. Temperature. We have lovely temperature data. WeatherBug has a network of over 8,000, I believe, network or weather stations. But I have in my house, I'm going to say about 15 temperature sensors, including one right outside my front door. I am incredibly lazy. I have to walk down 2 flights of stairs to get to my front door. So sometimes I just want to see what that temperature is right away without jumping out of bed. Now imagine If I can do that, and my things can do that, suddenly a lot more interesting use cases become possible. So temperature has a wonderful chance at becoming basic infrastructure. People counting. There are two startups here, Density and Place Meter. Both of these do it a little bit different ways, but what they do is they count how many people either walk into a space or walk by a space. They have no idea who the people are. This is not some weird Wi-Fi tracking thing. What you can do with that is tell people how long is the line at the DMV. There's a hospital in the US using it in their emergency room, and they share the data from the density sensor to their ambulance drivers. And so if there's too many people in the ER, the ambulance drivers get a message saying, we are booked, don't come here. And they can see other hospitals in the network to figure out if it's better to send their case elsewhere. It's a really powerful use case for understanding where people are, not who they are, but where they are at any point in time. Energy consumption. I am obsessed with peak shaving and demand response. I think being able to offer as a base level service in data form to people how much electricity various household appliances consume would be game changing. You can suddenly start building the type of demand response systems that that are subtle and that we really want. So right now when it's 4 o'clock, my Nest, or 4 o'clock on a summer Sunday or a summer weekday in Austin, my Nest will actually, my power company tells my Nest to turn up the air, and suddenly I'm sweltering. But what if I had the choice, and what if I had the data, and they had the data that said, hey, instead of your Nest thermostat, let's not dry your clothes, because I'd much rather be comfortably cool than be cool than worry about my clothes at the moment. So air quality is another one. I think Plume Labs, I think it's here. They're doing some cool work here. Air quality data, water quality data, all of those things would be really important for governments, for you could change the world. We'll stop there. Health data. There's a company called Kinza that makes a connected thermostat, and everybody's really excited about the connected thermostat, not because it's connected, but because it shares the data that it has with neighboring communities. So they pass them out at schools, and the schools actually, everyone in the school gets access to this, and if a bunch of kids start turning up sick because the parents took their temperature, they open an app and they say, hey, he's got these symptoms. Other parents can see it. And then the school administrators know, other parents know, oh, it's strep going around. They know if they should call their doctor or if it's something like, God help us, meningitis. This is really cool. So, again, all of that is kind of what I think we can do, the kind of solutions we should be looking for and thinking about. Business thinking. So, if you're going to become infrastructure, you're like, that sucks. It's commodity, it's low cost. It is. Remember these things. There is almost always another sensor. I get so sick of people telling me their data is going to change. It's going to be awesome. Again, think back to those 15 temperature sensors in my home. Any one of those companies could become one of these infrastructure providers. Cheaper is better. Lesson from GPS. Breadth first, then depth. Think about Tile. They spent a year and a half building out their network to get those network effects before they started integrating deeply with other companies. Resiliency is essential. If your GPS network goes down in your Uber, suddenly you are stuck. You're stuck. You don't have anything. And you are a service. Act like it. If you want to do this, you cannot force people you can offer them an API. You cannot force them to download an app and your dashboard and all of this. These sorts of services, you have to think about them becoming part of bigger, cooler, other things. And sending someone to 15 different dashboards just to piece together a service like the one I mentioned to the ambulance, that's just not going to happen. Other challenges. Resist the urge to know everything. Privacy is really important to people. We cannot have this crazy surveillance state. Everyone thinks their baby is beautiful. This kind of ties into the data. There's always another sensor. But people seem to think that because they're a major appliance manufacturer, because they're a huge company doing X, Y, and Z, that their data is somehow special, that they don't have to play nicely with others. And that's holding us back. You can't, if Qualcomm was like, you know what, all the CDMA GPS data, you can only do deals with us. You can only have that. We're gonna build our own stuff because our own GPS location engine because our data is so precious. They actually tried that. That was the pre-Solo MoCo era. And don't focus on that typo. That would be the wrong thing. Expect people to focus on the wrong thing. Kinza, like I said, they're making a connected thermometer. People think that's the dumbest idea until they understand what the company is actually focusing on. When you guys are building a connected device, maybe because you want to pull a Tile or a Kinza and sneak into offering this kind of infrastructure, don't listen to the people who are like, this is dumb. But also, if you're building something asinine and stupid, I really hope that you have some sort of infrastructure vision, because I see a lot of crazy connected stuff and I'm not 100% sure what they're doing. And I would say to you things like PetNet, which we saw a bunch because they failed. They did not kill a cat, as Alistair said. But that's a company that isn't actually focused on providing the connected pet feeder. They're actually looking at data, health data about animals and trying to provide that to people. So we can mock it, and when they failed, we should have, because that was terrible. But they're trying to do this bigger thing. And I encourage all of y'all, as you're thinking about this and building for this, to think about that big infrastructure service, to think about making the Internet of Things a reality that we can be proud of, as opposed to a bunch of connected crap that we throw out in a year or two. And that's it.